Nintendo announced that it is delaying pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in order to assess the potential impact of President Donald Trump's tariffs. Wrote this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. At the beginning of this month, Nintendo announced that Nintendo Switch 2 will be available for pre-order in North America from participating retailers beginning on April 9, 2025, as part of their Nintendo Direct, where they provided significant details about the Switch 2. They revealed that the system, console, handheld, whatever you want to call it, will retail at around $450 or will retail at $450. But there is a bundle for $500 that also gets you Mario Kart World. Didn't include it in this article, but they are selling Mario Kart World for $80 digitally and $90 physically. The Donkey Kong game is selling for $70. But to the point at hand, a Nintendo spokesman informed Polygon that it will be delaying the pre-order date due to President Donald Trump's tariffs. The spokesman said pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in the U.S. will not start April 9, 2025 in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch date of June 5, 2025 is unchanged. I think the elephant in the room there is that they don't talk about whether or not they're going to be changing any of those prices due to the tariffs. And I think that might be the more concerning thing rather than the fact that they're just delaying pre-orders. And maybe that's implied, right? If you are delaying pre-orders, then you're potentially going to be changing the cost of the system as well as the various games that are supposed to be launching on it. And I don't know how the economics of that will work. Obviously, you have a number of different developers from various different countries who have all been hit with different levels of tariffs by President Donald Trump and his administration. Not sure how that works, especially on a digital marketplace, etc. So it will be really interesting to see kind of how all of this kind of plays out moving forward. But just to kind of give you a brief overview of what is kind of going on, President Donald Trump and his administration announced on April 2nd it was declaring a national emergency to increase the United States of America's competitive edge, and it would be doing that by imposing tariffs on various countries. In a press release, the administration stated that President Trump's order imposes responsive tariffs to strengthen the international economic position of the United States and protect American workers. We can look at a little bit of that right here. Let me just do a real quick Control F. And you can see it says, using his IEEPA authority, President Trump will impose a 10% tariff on all countries. This will take effect April 5, 2025 at midnight. So that is tomorrow. And it also says President Trump will impose an individualized reciprocal higher tariff on the countries with which the United States has the largest trade deficits. All other countries will continue to be subject to the original 10% tariff baseline. Japan is mentioned in that press release multiple times. At one point, it says here, countries including China, Germany, Japan, and South Korea have pursued policies that suppress the domestic consumption power of their own citizens to artificially boost the competitiveness of their export products. Such policies include regressive tax systems, low or unenforced penalties for environmental degradation, and policies intended to suppress worker wages relative to productivity. In another portion of that press release, it specifically talked about automakers, saying U.S. automakers face a variety of non-tariff barriers that impede access to the Japanese and Korean automotive markets, including non-acceptance of certain U.S. standards, duplicative testing and certain requirements, and transparency issues. Due to these non-reciprocal practices, the U.S. automotive industry loses out on an additional $13.5 billion in annual exports to Japan and access to a larger import market share in Korea, all while the U.S. trade deficit with Korea more than tripled from 2019 to 2024. Now, obviously, we're talking about Japan because that is where Nintendo is based, and the Trump administration actually leveled a 24% tariff on Japan, not just the 10% general tariff that we just discussed. It also levied a 34% tariff on China, and Vietnam got hit with a 46% tariff. Those two countries are also of import because Nintendo manufactured its Nintendo Switch in China, but moved some of that production to Vietnam back in 2019 as means of diversifying risks. So I'm not sure. I would assume, I haven't gone into really dug into this yet, but I would assume they're still probably manufacturing the Switch 2 in China and Vietnam as well. And so that is why those tariffs might also be of import when it comes to what Nintendo is looking at and why they are delaying the pre-order for the Switch 2. We've already seen a response from Japan. This is from the Japan Times. Japanese Trade Minister Yoji Muto reacted to the tariff, saying, "This requires a careful yet bold and speedy approach. Therefore, I believe it is crucial that we make a calm and rational judgment on this matter." He did say that Japan is open to retaliating against the United States, saying the Prime Minister has instructed us to consider all possible responses while weighing the interests of both Japan and the United States. This includes assessing whether retaliatory measures would be an appropriate course of action. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba also indicated he was open to negotiating directly with President Donald Trump. He said, "While cabinet ministers and officials will carefully build upon our efforts, if it is deemed appropriate for me to directly engage with President Trump, I have no hesitation in doing so at the most suitable time and in the most appropriate manner." So that is the latest on the Nintendo Switch 2. Pre-orders have been delayed from April 9. Unclear as to when that will be. Nintendo did say it is still sticking with the launch date of June 5, 2025. They don't talk about any kind of changes to the price. However, I think it's safe to assume that the fact that you're delaying pre-orders means that you're likely looking at changing price depending on what happens with these tariffs. So we will see what happens here and how Nintendo reacts to these new tariffs from the United States and President Donald Trump's administration. Let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.